reversal can be found in a bullish or a bearish form. It can also be used on any time frame. A lot of traders think it's only found on the daily, but you can find this on any time frame. Our first example is the daily time frame of BP, and we're going to be looking at an island top. A lot of people misunderstand it. An island top is actually bearish because of the gaps. A lot of traders look for gap fills. So let's talk about it and explain how they act and how they work and why they form the patterns that they do, so you can better understand them and you know how to make money with them. So you can see BP here. We come up here, we put in a top, not a double top, but it did have a lower high. So we're going to draw our first line. You can see we have a nice zone up here. Draw our first line across that candle wick. The second line right here on this red candle that gives us a nice zone up here. Now we're not going to be lazy. We do know that it takes 3 touch points to form a textbook trend line. But since we're in an uptrend here, you can see the series of higher lows. So we're in an uptrend heading up. We're going to be looking for resistance levels so we have an area to build a plan around. So in this case, we could possibly wait for a touch of this. Maybe we could see a reversal and a move back down. Take it out. We could expect price acceleration, a nice push up into resistance. So let's hit the play button and let's see what happens. You can see right here that we gapped up over top that level and we actually retested it right there. So we also know that we have this resistance level above us. So we have what's called a breakaway gap. Anytime that you gap through a level of interest could be a moving average, support, or resistance line. It could be a trend line. So that is all considered a level of interest. And when you gap over a level of interest is when you get what's called a breakaway gap. A breakaway gap in this case would be bullish because we're gapping up, so that would be bullish. But we know we have resistance above us, so we're not going to rush into this trade. We also, we do have a great MACD, but we can see 2 red candles coming back down, retesting that trend line. So we know we need to be above that overhead resistance before we're looking for a trade anyway. You see the 9s coming up. We're pushing right into the resistance level. We know we need to clear that level. In this case, we never cleared that level. So price is on its way back down. Right now is when we want to extend our trend line because we do have 3 touch points now. So this is a valid trend line now. So 1, 2, there's your 3rd touch point. So that's a valid trend line. So maybe we can catch a trade off from that level, that trend line. Maybe we can retest it and catch a decent trade there. And in this case, you can see a gap down. So it gives us a gapped over a level of interest, give us another breakaway gap for a move lower. Now, it is a bearish signal. As you can see, we're moving lower. The moving average come down, and we're starting to move lower. Now, of course, there's a lot of traders later will be looking for a gap fill. It usually takes some time after you receive a island top or a island bottom, depending on the direction of the pattern that you find. And please understand that these price action patterns can be found in multiple forms. If it's a single candle, it's called an abandoned baby. It is not a island top if it's just a single candle. If it's multiple candles, which in this case, multiple days, is considered an island top. In this case, it's a little head and shoulderish up here, definitely not textbook, but you can kind of see the lower high was put in before moving lower off of resistance. And we would have never went to even thinking about going long until we got up here, because obviously we're looking for the path to least resistance. And pushing right into a resistance level is definitely not the path of least resistance. And that's exactly what price took here, was the path of least resistance after testing the level of resistance. And you can see it's moving lower. Now, traders will look for a gap fill. Now, to look for a gap fill on this play, you would want to extend your trend line no matter however long it takes. And you would want to let price action run. So you would be looking for another move to take this trend line out. BP has not done that yet, so we're going to have that on our radar. But you would be looking to take the trend line out. You could catch some price acceleration up to your gap. We normally would expect a reaction at the gap and a reversal to come back down, to retest a short-term moving average, and then push back into the gap. And then just a quick reminder, 86% of the time when you push up into the gap to the top of the window, you can see a reaction there, usually pull back to a short-term moving average before pushing into the gap. So that's what the gap traders are looking for. But the island top reversal is actually a reversal to the downside. A lot of people get very confused because they automatically think, let's trade the gap for a gap fill. but not in this case. You want to wait and let the bearish move happen and then look for a reversal and take the trend line out. Let's find another example and let's see what we can find there. Example number 2 is a little different. We're going to use the daily time frame of Bill, B-I-L-L, and as of right now, we have a rough bottom ascending triangle. We do got 2 touch points on the bottom. We would prefer 3, but we can see the buyer stepping in. MACD's crossing here, so we're possibly looking for a reversal. This top trend line is a level of interest. It is a resistance level. So this video is going to be a little different. We looked at an island reversal a while ago where your breakaway gap failed. This video is going to be a breakaway gap working, and we're going to notice a little bit of difference in the chart. We don't have a whole lot of overhead resistance here. We do have a nice gap, but not major resistance like we pushed up into earlier. So let's see what we get here. We've already broke the downtrend and put in the bottom ascending triangle. So when we press play, we can see the gap up. So we gapped up over a level of interest. So that's looking like a breakaway gap and trying to push up, waiting on a short-term moving average, which is just what we normally do. You can see your MACD changing character. So it can definitely cross and roll over, but we could possibly be seeing a pinch. So if we continue here, you can see trying kind of waiting on the 20 to catch up, and we're also forming another trading range. So as we're putting in a trading range, that gives us a place to look for an entry or a place to build a plan. And remember, we always have a plan A and a plan B. We can draw a line across the bottom as well. We could be looking for a gap fill or a possible island top reversal. So at this point, we still don't know whether we're going to get the breakaway gap and run higher, or the island reversal and gap back down into the original pattern. But we can see here breaking the level of interest and pushing higher, short-term moving average moving higher. So we know at this point we are not trading at a island top. We got a nice breakaway. In this particular case, we had a gap over here. So you can see we pushed up into the gap and we're seeing the reversal at the gap. So we're seeing a reaction at the top of the gap. We were able to take it out pretty easy. Seeing a reaction at the top. Looks like we're rolling over here. See what we get on this one this week. And let's see if we can find one more example. This is an example of a breakaway gap that works, but you do not get the gap fill on the pullback. So let's see what we get here. We had a nice little uptrend right into our 200. The very next candle is going to gap up, which is going to give us our breakaway gap over top of a resistance level. Coming back to retest a short-term moving average. Remember, this is a flag. The shape, it's, I know a lot of people swear it does, but the shape of the flag really doesn't matter. It's the retest of the short-term moving average or the breakout area, and this works for all breakouts. Draw your trend line right there. This candle is already trying to push up. It's trying to push up off the short-term moving average. In this case, the gap did not get filled, so there is still a little bit of gap down there. And you can see here that we are climbing higher. So as always, whether it be any kind of a breakout, we're looking for the retest. Your conservative trader is looking for the retest of the breakout area or a short-term moving average. And this example was on the daily chart, so we flagged back into the daily 9 and continued higher. So in this example, the breakaway gap worked without failing to give us an island reversal. And as you can see right here, there wasn't a lot of major resistance on the push up. So we only expect the island reversals when we see major resistance above us when we gap up. So we need to be a little more careful when we catch a gap. I know we always expect that gap to be filled, but it doesn't always happen. We're going to be doing a little series on 4 different types of gaps and how to understand and how to better trade the different types of gaps. So I hope you find this helpful, and I'll see you in the trading room.